I'm Kelsey Litchfield, and this is the Field Advisor Podcast, where I talk with local experts to unpack the latest agronomy information and research, giving you the knowledge to make informed decisions out in the field. Here we are, Farm Progress Show. Welcome back, everyone, to the Field Advisor Podcast. This is exciting.
It is.
They're like, you're not at home behind your desk. No, we're here at Farm Progress Show, catching soy envoys that come through, other conversations that come through, and here we are. Introduce yourself real quick for those that don't know you. We'll start with you, Stephanie, and then we'll go from there.
Byron Hendrix, Soy Envoy for 2025, Henry County, Kewanee, so Western Illinois. Been monitoring crops there, as well as traveling to Southwest Illinois in the recent 4 or 5 weeks.
All right. Stephanie, real quick.
Yeah, Stephanie Porter, our agronomist at the Illinois Soybean Association, here with the agronomy team.
Byron, give us an update. What's happening in Henry County? I know you've been traveling places as well, so just give us a real quick glimpse of what's happening in the fields.
Yeah, really happy on the corn crop. I was a little nervous when some of the numbers came out. Originally from Crop Tour, very hot, right? Concerned about standability if the weather would have stayed typical averages, let's say, or above average. But since this cool weather has come, the corn crop is I think, in a really good shape. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. We're able to fill out nicely. So continuing that nice push toward, let's call it September, late September, hopefully in the next 3-4 weeks or so. Soybeans look incredibly healthy with the exception of some SDS spots. Mm-hmm. There is some spaces you see, you just look out and about, you can get in, and it's definitely mostly SDS for that part, but it's very spotty. It's not widespread yet. Again, I think the cooler weather is going to help us out there. We do need to catch, I think, one more rainfall. I would love to have one more rainfall, honestly.
I think you and a lot of people, right, Stephanie?
Looking at the 10 to 14-day forecast, though, it was like cooler than normal and pretty much no precipitation. I'm like, oh, there that goes. Okay. But that's all right. I think we have a very good pod counts are high. I like what I'm seeing in soybeans as well.
I guess I will concur. I think we are set up very well for a good crop, but I think there's a lot of concern across central Illinois and parts of southern Illinois where we just haven't got a lot of rain in the last 3-4 weeks. There were some spotty rains, and I heard people say, yeah, I got a tenth or so, here or there. It wasn't as good, and I think there was just cause for concern because of the heat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so now with the cool down, I think we're starting to not panic as much, but still we would just love to have that one last rain, especially for beans. I just talked to a gentleman that was up by Princeton who said the exact same thing. Talked to somebody near Champaign yesterday that said the same thing, that they're just a little concerned about the grain fill in the crop, and especially with beans. Going home and seeing finally what our final yields are. I think one of the things that happened last year that kind of caught us off guard is those late rains really saved us with the crop, and we didn't think it was going to be that, as good as what it was.
Yeah.
And so that's something we're not getting this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, looking at the long-term forecast, we're not looking at any rainfall through the next, 10 to 14 days. It looks pretty rare.
Yeah. What about corn disease? I know that's been a hot topic. Byron, what are you seeing in Henry County?
I think people that sprayed are going to be very happy they did. The disease is, for the most part, staying below the ear leaf. People that did not spray, that's another story, especially as you hear from Iowa, our counterparts to the west, it's in pretty bad shape that way with the southern rust especially. Have not seen southern rust as bad as they've gotten out there, coming out of fields just completely, orange. We don't see that. There are some other diseases out there. You can definitely see it from the end rows and the compacted rows. But as you move in, I think most of the disease, if you did spray, stayed below the ear leaf, really good there. Some were actually thinking about spraying a second time. But I think some of those decisions, because the weather cooled off, the disease probably came down a little bit, or not as fast and progressive. So that was probably off the table. But I did hear about some second applications. Did you hear that, Stephanie, as well?
I'm hearing a little bit of everything. Yeah. I think one of the things I've really noticed on our own farm, and others might be noticing as well, is the differences in hybrids. So first and foremost, we have a hybrid that's much worse on gray leaf spot. And then we have hybrids, for example, on the ISA farm that, is getting southern rust much worse maybe than some of the other hybrids. So something to think about there. I think there's a lot of people that didn't spray. And there's a little concern there for those. And then I think there's the other side of the spectrum where, and I think that's more so your area, and that is tar spot.
Yep.
And because they've seen the devastation of that disease before. Kelsey, you showed me some pictures. You have it on your farm. I mean, it's just one of those diseases that doesn't just leave some spots. It turns the entire plant dead.
Yes.
Yeah, it can be bad. I mean, you look at 30 to 60 bushels that can come off just super quick, and that's very concerning. And you look at what you could have done to prevent that with 3 weeks, an additional 3 weeks if you had to spray a second time, let's say. But
from the south, I've just heard extreme concern with southern rust, and especially for later planted.
Yep. Question I've been getting on southern rust is it here to stay? So is it like soybean rust where we're like it blows up, right, and it's a potential. But what is southern rust doing corn? Do we have the spores now?
So it blows up every year. It just some years it's later, and I think that we talked about this yesterday. I think it's up in Iowa and northern Illinois. It's just not as common, and so it may not be there the next couple years.
Yep.
It's just this happened. We happen to have the right conducive winds where it has to blow, the rusts have to blow up. It's always been here. It's always been an issue in southern Illinois.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's just something that we're dealing with this year up north.
Yeah. One question for both of you. I'm curious your answer. So recent Pro Farmer Crop Tour went through. They saw quite a bit of disease in corn. Soybeans, I think they were more optimistic about, but corn, definitely saw it in corn. USDA is now forecasting a record yield. What say you after seeing what the USDA said, now looking at what Pro Farmer found? I'm not saying you have to estimate yields or anything, but just what was your takeaway from reading that information? And Byron, feel free to go first.
Yeah, listening every day, and of course we had a couple of them come right through Henry County on the tour, and we also have another company that does their same one over there. Yields again were really good. I think not last year, but probably second. I mean, the second largest crop is kind of the mentality right now. But again, I think this cool weather, what is this going to do to finish us off? Is this going to be beneficial and get us to those numbers of a 188, or is it going to be more of a 184, 185? That's kind of where I'm at right now. I think. Honestly, I think we're going to come in below 188, just my gut feel. But again, it's just a gut feel. I don't think we've got the crop that they think we have. But we do have the acres of corn specifically in the country. I mean, we've got a lot of corn that got planted.
Yeah, I agree. I think from this year, I think we're set up very well. I think stands looked great early on. We just had the perfect early season, and we had abundance of moisture. And then all of a sudden, I think people had forgotten some storms went through. So they're seeing that on the tour, I think, a little bit. And we had some stress during some pollination times. We still, I don't think, have a good handle on how bad that was.
Yeah.
Pollination, whether, there's a lot of pictures of tip back. Now, my experience as a seed agronomist is tip back is an emotional thing. Tip back doesn't always necessarily mean yield loss, and I'm not selling anything right now. I've seen that firsthand, but I guess my biggest thing right now would be the grain fill period, and this cooler weather I think is helping. But again, I'm like, we need moisture. I just don't know. I don't think it's definitely. I think it's gonna be below 188.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the moisture. You can certainly see it change dramatically from my area as I drive south to southern Illinois. There's that pocket that has not had any moisture. They caught some of the rains to the north, and it snuck into maybe I-80 area and then just stopped. And then we haven't seen any rainfall below I-80 for quite a while, or even south toward Peoria and south of there.
But with that heat in the last week, 2 weeks ago, I mean, things just started going down, and things were dying, and I think this cool weather has really helped that kind of stave off. And I think I talked to somebody yesterday hoping it kind of helps, as long as we have green is what I've heard, you can still have a possibility of some fill. but we need spray too.
Yeah.
And I think, I'll use our farm as an example. We got 7 inches in July. So, do you have that still in the soil in some of these nice black soils where they're still have that moisture? Yes, you possibly could. In other soils, you may not.
Right. Yep, exactly. I think the other thing, too, is I saw early, and this was mentioned earlier in the summer as well, was we saw some flaring from the bottom early on, and I think it was a matter of how much rainfall we did have. I mean, big rainfall totals, right? We had 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, Cambridge, Galesburg, areas like that, and we had high plant populations in really good soils, probably around that 36,000 or so. There was some early flaring going on, I think, because we had pooling of water and we had loss of nitrogen. So that is one other indicator, I think, as we move in. Do we have enough nitrogen to actually fill this crop out?
That's another good point.
Yeah, I'm seeing some cornfields that are looking very light green. And I'm like, oh, they just look a little sick. That's my best way to put it. But I'm not curious now. We're here at the end of August, going into September. How do we finish this season out? What's on both of your radars too? Of what's your recommendation to farmers? I know it's some of this talk. You just have to keep that in mind for the next year or the year after that, once that crop is back in that field. But with some of the things we've talked about, what's your recommendation to farmers now?
Yeah, looking back on the season, I see what I saw in southern Illinois, deep southern Illinois, with the water hemp, right? I knew it was going to get up to the northern part of Illinois eventually and start to look like fields that we had many years ago. So I'm concerned with that. Some pre-emergences broke. Some didn't use pre-emergence tillage, etc. So water hemp is one of those ones for next year. Already trying to look forward and trying to get that weed under control. I've seen more cover crops this year than I've seen in a long time.
Oh, interesting.
And those fields are really clean. They look really good. I think cover crops worked really well, and in my area anyway, Henry County, they just looked exceptional. I mean, from a weed control standpoint, the beans look great. They look very healthy now. So I'd like to see that continue. I'd like to see more producers, if they're utilizing cover crop or thinking about it, try to get into the NRCS programs with the CSP, EQIP, those type of things, and adding everything you're already doing on your farm or thinking about doing, go in and have that conversation. Because I think with the current environment we're in with economics, every bit's going to help. So you're already visiting your NRCS office, USDA, for other things, reporting things, and why not have that conversation? It's a separate conversation. Take that to the left and move this one to the right, and then let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things that I've recognized on our own farm is that we're trying to pick seed for the following year. And so I reminded my brother that this year was not normal, and I said the same thing last year.
Yep.
So, and we also planted some, you guys may not have, but we planted some stuff in May too. And so things are looking taller than normal, some hybrids. Things may not be what we want them to be when the combine goes through, and so don't take that into consideration when you're picking some seed for next year. It's tough. Take note. I guess a lot of people are noticing diseases that they may not have had before, and getting a lot of questions about that, and whether or not. I just had a gentleman ask me about peaking and our soil SEN testing. So I think I'm getting a lot more of those questions where people are actually trying to take note of what they're planting for the following year, and if they should get peaking, if they should be testing for soybean cyst nematode. In our neck of the woods, central Illinois, red crown rot was very evident in places. And so a lot of people are asking about seed treatments, so we hope to do a podcast about that later today. And so, it's seed treatments, aren't necessarily, and it's an answer right now, but it's not a silver bullet.
Right.
That's all we have. So we need to keep working on getting some more things for the future.
And I think every grower knows that every year is different, right? I really believe this year we went through 2 periods of typical rapid growth syndrome early on, where we just saw the corn crop. You could sit there and watch it grow out your backyard, having a cup of coffee, whatnot. And then we had another period of super fast growth as well later on, which was just kind of odd, because it seemed like things were 10 days ahead, 14 days ahead. It was just, what's this crop doing? It's going so fast.
Yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. We were super cool.
Yep.
Then we're so hot. This is the hottest summer I think I've ever had to be out in the field.
Yeah.
And I've been in there and out there a lot. So, I mean, you always remember a hot week.
Yep.
Or something, but nothing like this year. I mean,
yeah,
the resilience of our crops are definitely going to be able to show through, or some of those hybrids or varieties.
Definitely.
I think come winter too now we're going to be like, oh, I wish I had those hot days maybe. Aren't we always like that? We wish for the other thing at the other time. So speaking of harvest, what things to keep your eye on while they're up in the combine? Give us some notes that they should be just thinking through their mind as they're watching the combine go through.
Yeah, I think I always look at standability first, right? When you're in the combine, you're looking, you're riding along, or you're driving, you're just like, wow, this is great. The standability is good. And then all of a sudden, you get to an area where it's not. Why is that? You know, what happened? Could it be disease? Could be nitrogen? Could be those type of things. The other thing I'm thinking about is like, gosh, I'm picking this thing awfully early, and now my dryer gas bill is going to be higher. So why, maybe hybrid selection. I mean, looking at it, people are doing those decisions now for 26, correct? Purchasing seed. So I think now into the combine, and even in the combine, looking back on the season and what could you do difference. Maybe I planted a little too heavy this year. Maybe your population was a little erratic. Maybe we didn't get good singulation. Those type of things. Those are great to look from the combine there.
Yeah, I think stock standability is going to be huge this year with all the disease.
Yep.
And so take a lot of notes on that. And that definitely can be hybrid or variety specific. Standability is going to be big this year. Worried about even there was a worry with the die and dry with the heat in certain areas, with lack of nitrogen, with ears possibly not staying on. That can I hope that's not an issue now that we've cooled down a bit. But that was a worry in some areas. Just overall, just intactness of the hybrid.
Yep.
And making sure that grain gets into the combine is a worry, a concern. And I think there's just going to be so many areas, I know, on our farm where you said weeds. I mean, it just makes me cringe right now. But there's just some breaks out there. We planted early, our beans early, and population, we tried to bump up a little bit more, but we had a rough spring. It was really cool and wet.
Yeah.
And some did have to replant a little bit, and so there's some holes out there. That's what we are struggling with as well, with those weeds.
Real quick, talk about fall burn down, both of you too.
Yeah, fall burn down is always an interesting topic because what are you going to do next year, right? So we had a record amount of corn acres go in, and we had less soybeans, obviously, but there were people that treated in the fall last year that said, "Oh gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that," right? Because it's again, I wanted to flip flop. Where's that herbicide at? And those things. So if you're considering fall burn down, make sure you have your options open. Don't close the door on either crop if possible. So those are very important things to look at as we see the bottoms hopefully in the market and we start to go up. Acres start to switch and things, but keep the door open is what I say. I do love fall burn down. It really makes a clean field in the spring. It's significant, but that's just some of my thoughts there.
Yeah, I especially after the last 2 years, I've been a believer in the fall burn down program. Especially if you would go like to U of I, some of the weed field days. I mean, if you see a side by side, it's kind of a no-brainer. But I also truly understand the economics in this, and that is what people are talking about. For example, I've been hearing on posts, they're claiming like the glufosinate not working. Well, you need to add, let's add some Enlist 1 for those Enlist beans, and it's not necessarily what they want to spend money on.
Right.
And so I totally understand. And so some of those fall burn down programs, that definitely adds to the inputs as well.
It
so,
does.
I mean, it's a big discussion, I think, on the farm.
Yep. Yep.
Not to open another can of worms, but Byron, I'm just curious on your comment on, speaking of weed management, weed control, EPA is opening up a comment period for dicamba over the top. Do you have any concerns or comments about that?
Yeah, I've got a concern, yes. same concern as most people have with the drift and volatility issue we have with that product, but it is a great tool, and we do need that tool. We're not gaining tools, we're losing tools. So I do love dicamba. I just don't know how they're going to manage that state-by-state planting dates, except if that happens to be an over-top use again. Can we use it, maybe on really small beans up to a date? Who knows? I think Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, they're all going to be different. But I do truly believe we need that tool in the toolbox. Just my opinion on that, because we do have, as you mentioned, glufosinate can do so much. Enlist One can do so much. Those things. Roundup, as we know, is does its thing, and it's significantly dropped back on weed control on several weeds, resistance-wise. But we do need the dicamba tool, whether that's combined early on, or maybe it's pre. I hope it's not pre only. I hope we can maybe get dicamba hopefully post again and be able to manage it a little better than we did before. But I can just imagine if we had over-the-top dicamba just this summer. I don't know what would have happened, but holy moly, I cringe at the temperatures, and July 4th when fireworks are going off and I smell dicamba all over the air wherever you drive, and it's like, wow, holy moly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The dreaded D word, Stephanie.
Yeah, the dreaded D word.
Yeah.
Who knew? Here we go.
Here we go.
Talking about it again.
Yep.
She's like, darn
Yep.
it, she brought it up.
Yeah, so ISA definitely, our stance is it is another tool in the toolbox. We need everything we can get to combat these weeds. Yep. But as a soybean product manager, I'm just putting myself in that place when we had to forecast seed, 2 seasons ago. And I just wonder how much of the XtendFlex seed will be available. So that's a topic.
Yep.
And Kelsey and I are trying to talk to different people here at the show. We'd love to hear more from them, but that'll be interesting too. I think a lot of people in Central Illinois are getting a little too excited about dicamba, and we still have a very high percentage of the Enlist E3 being planted. So the whole neighbor thing, still, obviously you said they're still concerned about some of the volatility, more so even inversions is what Corey Lacey said that we really need to start talking about if this dicamba does come back.
Agreed. Yep.
And so not just drift necessarily. We have to start teaching about inversions again. And I think that we've just struggled, and economics can start playing with it. And I think that people in their heads thinking, it's back, maybe in Central Illinois.
Yeah.
But it's pockets is what we've heard.
Yeah.
It's pockets, don't get me wrong. But Central Illinois was a place where there used to be a high amount of use of dicamba at one point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the industry, we've got a lot of the, VRAs, we'll call them, the volatility reducing agents that are out there. There's a lot of it. Many companies have product on the shelf still. Some shelf lives are different than others, but I think they're curious as well at how this is going to come out, because they're going to start moving that product again, because I'm pretty sure that will be an added thing on a label, or continue to be on the label as far as using a VRA of some sort, a multifunctional with that. So very interesting. What's the comment period's going on now, and we're expecting a decision.
The comment period actually was extended.
Yeah. Okay.
To early September.
Yep.
And when we talked to Corey Lacey, who's on the ISA team last week, he said there's hope that they'll make a decision pretty quickly. So
it needs to be quicker than slow, that's for sure.
Anything else? Byron, we appreciate you dropping by and just saying, hey, you want to do a podcast update?
Absolutely. Love
Did you know you were doing a podcast
Nope,
today?
didn't, but I love it. This is great. Great.
All right. Any lasting words, anything else you want to mention?
Not that I can think of, but just thank you so much for being Soy Envoy this year. We appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it, and everybody be safe as well.
And real quick, just give us a brief you're writing your next blog. Just give us a brief synopsis of what it's going to be.
So I've been working on a project with the Council Producers, Distributors of Agrotechnology, CPDA. We have our annual meeting coming up in the end of September with Crop Life America. I believe Luther Smith from the CCA National Board is going to join us at that meeting. So I'm planning on doing a blog at putting in applications. We're really focusing on 595 pest management. So let's add 595 pest management to what we're doing already, 590 340 cover crops, those things, and really get a higher score to get those applications in. And knowing that TSPs, or CCAs, TSPs, it's a very easy process. So we're connecting all those dots together in this project. Hopefully it's been a 6-month-long journey, but I think I'm going to write on that since I've been very busy with that, and just go into those CS offices and go ahead and apply and really look at it, because the funding is there. We have funding. It's by law. It's out there. It's a competitive process, but let's get funded.
Right.
So, yeah.
But I think it's a good point. You mentioned more cover crops. I mean, we're going to do some on-farm trialing. And I know there's different goals with cover crops, and that's great.
Yep.
But one of the goals that we're going to look at is weed suppression.
Yep.
And that's going to be our main goal, and I think that's what farmers can maybe use a cover crop to help with reducing some of those inputs.
Yeah, and if you add the cover crop 340 along with 595, it can go. They go hand in hand together. I mean, sometimes that's one less pesticide application, for example. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
So they can go conservation-wise, CSP-wise. That's all real good. Yep.
Well, there's your quick sneak peek. You'll be able to read it soon on fieldadvisor.org.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Byron, for coming by, swinging by at Farm Progress Show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor Podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.